All right, welcome into One of One Sports. We've got 1 week of college football under our belt, and we're looking towards week two. So let's make some predictions. So first up, I'll do some notable games that I'm not going to do a game breakdown for, but I'll just give you who I have winning. So first up, I think Tulane actually upsets Kansas State. Tulane's at home here. I think they're one of the best group of five teams. I was really high on them in the preseason, picked them to make the college football playoff. But that was mainly due to Oregon transfer Ty Thompson coming in, who was former like 5-star recruit at quarterback. He actually loses the job to Mensa, but that doesn't mean I'm out on Tulane. That just means I think, oh, they have a quarterback even better than him now. So I think they're going to get really good quarterback play. I like their running back, and I think Mario Williams at receiver is a really good piece for them. I think Kansas State is looking towards Arizona a little bit. I think Tulane gets a really big win over Kansas State here. Then I think Oklahoma State will beat Arkansas. I think the run game will be very good against Arkansas, and Oklahoma State will control the line of scrimmage. I think Oklahoma State wins it as long as Alan Bowman doesn't make too many mistakes, which I don't think he will. Then I have Kentucky over South Carolina. I was not impressed by South Carolina against Old Dominion, and I think this is a team that right now not very good. I think they'll improve throughout the year. I think Lenore Sellers will improve throughout the year, and they'll upset some people later on. But at this point, don't think they're that good. And Kentucky's at home. I'm going with Kentucky. Not saying it won't be competitive at all, but for me, I'm going with Kentucky pretty confidently. Then I have Texas Tech over Washington State. Texas Tech really struggled with Abilene Christian, only winning 52-51 in overtime, which is a little bit scary to pick Texas Tech after that. And for me, I was high on them in the preseason, so it's like, oh, yeah, I misevaluate this team potentially. But I think the offense is still really good, and I think even if this is a shootout, I think they can get the win. And I don't think they're as bad as they looked on defense at Abilene Christian. I think they play better, and I think they beat Washington State. And finally, I have ASU over Mississippi State. This is the first pick I'm changing this week from the preseason. I took Mississippi State in the preseason, but because of how good ASU looked against Wyoming, a game I thought would be pretty competitive, and they won 48-0. Now I'm thinking ASU is better than I thought they were, and I'm going to pick them to get another win. Some other games, I've got Clemson beating App State. A lot of people are down on Clemson after they got beat by Georgia so badly. That's fine. I'll buy all the Clemson stock. I mean, I think a lot of teams will get beat by Georgia pretty badly, and Clemson, I think, will still be fine. Maybe not a top-level contender like they used to be, but still one of the best teams in the ACC. I think Kansas beats Illinois. I think Maryland beats Michigan State. I think Utah beats Baylor. Let's see, Auburn I've got against Cal, and I'm leaning Georgia Tech against Syracuse. Now for game-by-game breakdowns. First up, big noon kickoff, college game day, game of the week. Super excited for it. It's Texas at Michigan. Let's get into the keys to the game. So first up, we have this Michigan offensive line versus this Texas defensive line. And this is pretty simple. Michigan wants to run the ball. And if this Texas defensive line, which no longer has Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat as run stoppers, isn't able to stop Michigan from running the ball, then that's a recipe for Michigan winning the game. And on the other side, Michigan lost their whole offensive line. Is that offensive line going to be good enough to establish a run game, which I think they need to do to win? Then Davis Warren and Alex Orji playmaking. I expect to see both of them again this week. Primarily Davis Warren, but I think, and I'll just put up the next one here, which is Michigan wide receiver stepping up. I don't think Michigan will just lean on Texas and be able to run the ball game. I think they'll have to make plays through the air. And a team that loses Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, which of these wide receivers can step up and become a top option for quarterback Davis Warren, and maybe Alex Orji if he's throwing, but more likely Alex Orji would have to make plays on the ground and some read options, make some big runs. Can they do it? And then Colston Loveland, I think at tight end, who I would say is preseason All-American, or I would expect to be at least. I think he's the best tight end in the country. Has to step up, have one of his biggest games of his career, because at this point in their career, I don't think you can ask these young wide receivers to play, or expect them at least to play great against Texas. You can't expect that out of Loveland, and I think he needs to have a huge game and help out Davis Warren at quarterback. And then finally, this Michigan defense. I think if Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham are stopping Texas run, which they're low or their running backs have been injured, so they don't have a lot of depth there and maybe aren't as good as they were preseason. So if Michigan's just stopping the run, getting interior pressure, Josiah Stewart off the edge pressuring Quinn Ewers, and he doesn't have time to throw, so the secondary is protected against these good Texas wide receivers, and Texas can't do much offensively, then, that's, a big step in Michigan winning this game. And their defense is capable of it, but Texas offense is very good. So before I make the final pick, I just want to say, reminds me a lot of this Alabama-Texas game last year, a team that you think will be very good, but early in the year don't look great. Questions at quarterback. Is their quarterback good enough to win? Questions on the offensive line, if it's as good as it's supposed to be. They're at home, Michigan's at home like Alabama was. Texas came in at 1, and I don't think Texas wins as convincingly as they did against Alabama, but I am, in a very close game, going to pick Texas to win 20-17. It's unfortunate because I root for Michigan, but I think there's just a little bit too much of a lack of explosivity from Michigan's offense. And I think Texas comes up with a few too many big plays and just has a few too many playmakers to get held completely in check. And I think Michigan has to hold them to a really low number to win this game. All right, second game breakdown. We got the Iowa State Cyclones versus the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Cy-Hawk battle. Obviously a big rivalry game here. I think Iowa's won 7 of 8 maybe, but Iowa has been winning this game recently for the most part. But so let's just jump right into the keys to the game. And I think the first one is Iowa State explosive plays, because we know what Iowa wants to do. Even against, I forget who they were playing last week, but it was like FCS school. But it was 6-0 at halftime. It ended up getting a 40-0 after the defense started. I think the defense scored at least one touchdown. But we know what Iowa wants to do. They want to, play defense, get a turnover that allows their offense, probably not even get a touchdown, get a few field goals, their offense, play good on special teams, win the game like 13-10 or something like that. But if Iowa State, who I think has really good players, especially Jalen Noel at wide receiver, but the wide receivers in general are good, their running back should be good, I like their tight end, and Rocco Becht at quarterback, I think has the potential to be really good this year. And if they're actually making plays on this Iowa defense, then Iowa's not gonna put up points to keep up. So the key to the game, if Iowa State makes explosive plays, then they'll win the game. But if it's 5 yards, 2 yards, 3rd and 3, we missed the throw, punt, and it's a 3-and-out game, and Iowa, the way Iowa wants it, then it comes down to, okay, whose defense is going to make a play, who's going to make a special teams play, then that'll favor Iowa if it's that sort of game. Next up, Cade McNamara, Rocco Becht protecting the football, right? I expect this to be a low-scoring game. It's traditionally and historically a very low-scoring game, and I think the winner of this is probably the winner of this could be whoever doesn't give it away, right? If I was going to want Rocco Becht to make a mistake and just wait for the game to come for them. So, it's going to be close all game, and then eventually Rocco Becht forces a pass he shouldn't because he's tired of 3-and-out, so he forced to throw, interception, Iowa set up to score, and that's able to give them a lead, and their defense protects it for the rest of the game. Or, he fumbles, something like that. But then on the flip side, Caden McNamara struggled with turnovers in spring, reportedly. And I think he could also, against the Iowa State defense, I don't think it's bad, make a few mistakes that end up resulting in Iowa State gaining control of the football game. Next up, we have Iowa skill players. And this kind of goes in with the Cade McNamara thing a little bit, just because if Iowa's skill players aren't doing anything, kind of like the first half where it's 6-0 and Iowa's offense just non-existent, then and Rocco Becht's protected the football, eventually that defense is going to break and Iowa State will win this game if Iowa just can't make any plays on offense. And our final key to the game is just going to be patience. I think Iowa State, you got to wait. Eventually a big play will come against this Iowa defense. You can't try to force it early because that'll just lead to Iowa's defense making a play and winning the game. And really, I was just banking on Iowa State's making mistakes and losing the game. And then if you're Iowa, that probably has to be your strategy because this offense doesn't look like it's improved, at least not from week one. You're going to have to be patient, wait on a mistake to be made, as in the past, that's what Iowa State does in this game, and you just lean on your defense once again, what you've been doing consistently for the last few years. All right, so let's give the prediction. I think it's very low scoring. I think Iowa State does make a few plays on offense that actually lead them to winning this game for only the second time in like 9 years, maybe 10 years, and I think they win it 16-13. Really close game, really low scoring. I almost went 13-10. But yeah, I'm sure I expect it to be a low scoring game where Iowa State actually has a few playmakers that you can see are the difference in the game, and Iowa doesn't have them, and I think Rocco Beck takes care of the ball. All right, third game, we have Tennessee Volunteers versus the NC State Wolfpack. So let's just go right into the keys to the game. So first up is Grayson McCall versus Nico Yama. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly, but Nico. And I don't mean this in like whoever plays better is going to win the game, because I think Nico, at least for sure in the future, but I think probably right now is the better quarterback, and I expect him. There's a very good chance that he plays better than Grayson McCall. But when I say this versus battle, with Grayson McCall's experience, give him the edge in terms of not like in the first quarter or the second quarter where it'll look like, oh, Tennessee's quarterback's just better. Look at, he's 6'6", huge arm. He can move, like maybe future number 1 overall pick. Not then. But I mean, if this is a tight game going into the fourth, does Grayson McCall does his experience, he's not going to force anything, which he has made turnovers in the past, but does he know how to win? Can he make winning plays in the fourth? Where if Nico's in a tight game, does he maybe go for a big play? He shouldn't. Maybe it's an incomplete pass that leads to he should maybe check it down, but he goes longer, makes a mistake, or maybe he forces it into double coverage one of these times. Just an inexperienced play by someone who's only in their third start versus Grayson McCall, who's in at least 5th, 6th year of college football. Can the experience gap close the talent gap for this game is what I'm looking for. Next up, this line of scrimmage matchup, and I think it's on both sides of the ball. I'll put this next one up too, because I think on NC State's side, James Pierce, a lot of people think he'll be the number 1 overall pick. Can this NC State offensive line hold up against him and the rest of the Tennessee defensive line, but mainly him? If you control him and his game-wrecking ability, then you can establish a run game. Then Grayson McCall has time to throw to receivers who we know how good Kevin Concepcion is, especially if you look at first game. I think he'll be a first-team All-American. I think he's probably top 5 receiver in the country this year. But then I think a guy like Noah Rogers still going to break out. I think you have other receivers who are very good. I think Justin Jolie at tight end can make some plays too. I think overall, if you hold up on the offensive line, the weapons on NC State are very good and will make plays against the Tennessee defense, especially in the secondary, which I think is weaker or one of the weaknesses of the team at this point. And then on the flip side, for Tennessee's offensive line, this NC State defense loses a lot and wasn't great against West Carolina. So if Tennessee just establishes a run game on them and then it opens up the passing game and Heupel's calling great plays and it's just points, they could, run away with this. And then finally, I have these NC State playmakers just because I think against secondary that's supposed to be weaker, these guys like Kevin Concepcion have to make plays and big plays to, show that if NC State's going to win this game. And then before we give final prediction, I just want something I'm thinking about here is I feel like people see how talented Nico is and just kind of forget, oh, this is only his third start. And then they see how, they played, I think, Chattanooga, which obviously is not a good marker for how good this Tennessee team is. And then West Carolina played tight against NC State, and people were like, and then with how bad the rest of the ACC performed, I think people are, kind of down on NC State right now, as maybe they weren't in the preseason. I also think NC State's looking at this game like big game, gotta win it. And I think Tennessee is I don't think Tennessee's getting up for this the way NC State's getting up for this. And because of that, I'm actually going to go with NC State to win 27-23. I think their playmakers make too many big plays against this Tennessee secondary. And I think Nico shows that, okay, yes, he will be great, but he'll make a few plays especially against a defense that may not be great, but it is very well coached by Dave Doeren. And I think that coaching experience will show, oh, we know how to make a young quarterback make a few mistakes that I think are just enough for NC State to win this game. And I'm going with the upset here. All right, fourth game, we have the Colorado Buffaloes, the media's favorite college football team, versus the Nebraska Cornhuskers in a renewal of an old rivalry. Well, they played last year, but that last year was the renewal of the rivalry where Colorado defeated Nebraska. So getting to the keys to the game, it's this Colorado offensive line. I think any Colorado game that is played the rest of the season, the key to the game is going to be Colorado's offensive line. Because we know Shedeur Sanders is great, we know Travis Hunter is great, we know Jimmy Horn's great, they have other good receivers, but do they have a run game, and can they protect Shedeur? That's always the question. It will continue to be the question, and it is the question for this game. Next up, Dylan Raiola's first big game. I think sneaky thing to watch is, yes, Dylan Raiola, extremely talented, but never played a Power 4 opponent yet, and this game's going to be really, it's at home, but it's going to be really hyped up. Maybe not pressure on him, but certainly just a lot of eyeballs watching. And so how will he respond to, his first huge game in college football? Next up, we have Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. And it's not will they play well, because we know they'll play well. But it's just how good will they be, or how great will they be? Is Shedeur going to go for 300 yards passing, or is he going to go for 400? How many sacks does he take? Is he making plays with his legs? How good of a Shedeur game is this? And then Travis Hunter, is he playing every down of football again? Is he coming up with, a big interception and locking down the side of the field while going for, 120 yards receiving or something like that? Or is this a more modest game for him where it's like, oh, maybe he got beat once or twice from being tired, no really big interception, and only 100 yards receiving or something like that? It's just something to watch for, because for Colorado, these guys have to play pretty much their A game every week because the team is structured solely around them to just make big plays, not to discount other people on the team. Jimmy Horn, obviously very good, but you watch Colorado, it does at times look like a three-player team. Not that they are, but sometimes it looks like that. And then it's just this Nebraska run game, just because the Colorado defensive line, a little bit shaky. And if Nebraska is able to run the ball and have ball control, keep it away from Shedeur, I think that's the easiest way to ensure you beat Colorado, is just, keep the ball out of their offensive hands, because their offense has good skill players and it's dangerous. And then also if you're able to run the ball and you don't have to throw it against a guy like Travis Hunter who can make a big play, and obviously you could avoid throwing towards him. But it's just being able to run the ball consistently will give you a clear edge. So now getting into what I think the actual score will be, who do I think will win? I think it's actually a very competitive game. I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch. I think both quarterbacks are making big plays. I think Travis is making big plays. I think it's pretty relatively high scoring. And I'm going to go with Nebraska to win 30-24. I think Colorado maybe has a shot to win it at the end, and Nebraska's defense, which I think is underrated and maybe should have been including keys to the game, can make some big plays. I think Colorado's offense is good enough to keep scoring on them, but I do think Nebraska has a good defense, and I will pick them to win 30-24. Final game breakdown, we have the Boise State Broncos going up against the Oregon Ducks in Eugene. Keys to the game here. First up, I think it's this Oregon run defense because of Ashton Jeanty of Boise State. He was my number 2 player of the week last week. He had 6 touchdowns, 267 yards rushing, but that was against Georgia Southern. This is Oregon, who we know didn't play that well in week 1, but the defense played fine. But that was Idaho. Boise State gonna want to get the ball in his hands, running the ball. Can Oregon's D-line, which includes guys like Uiagalelei, Mateo Uiagalelei, Jordan Burch, just those other linemen on that front. Are they able to just limit the Boise State run game and make Maddox make throws or make plays with his arm, and the rest of Boise State in general win this game outside of Jeanty, who is their best player? Then I think Boise State line of scrimmage play goes hand in hand with the run defense thing, but also on the other side, if Oregon's just clearly out physicaling Boise State's defensive line and Oregon's able to just run the ball with Jordan James, then this game could get away from Oregon. Or, sorry, get away from Boise State. But this next game, Boise State secondary versus Oregon receivers, I think very fun because I think Oregon has maybe the best receiver core in the country on paper. Certainly against Idaho, there were some issues. But I'm not going to change my full opinion of Oregon from one game. And I still think they have great receivers and should have a great offense. And I'm not sure this Boise State secondary is talented or good enough to, over the course of the game, stop guys like Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart from making big plays in the passing game. And the final key game is just Dillon Gabriel playing better. In general, if Oregon plays their best game and Boise State plays their best game, Oregon wins. It's like for Oregon to lose this game, they have to play below their capabilities. Boise State can't just beat Oregon if both teams play well. That's just not how it works. Or it's not how these teams, Oregon is too talented that if they play their best game, they will win. And their best game relies mainly on Dillon Gabriel playing very well. So who do I think wins? I think it's actually pretty close, but I do think Oregon plays a significantly better game. I still think Genty makes plays on this Oregon defense, and I think Boise State scores a few times, maybe brings out a few trick plays. We know Boise State loves their trick plays, but I think overall Dillon Gabriel plays better, and Oregon wins it 31-21. That's my final game-by-game breakdown. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe.